Hello, and welcome back to Bay Brothers. Today, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite DC Comics artists, plus one honorable mention that I just couldn't leave off the list. Now, comic book art is a deeply personal thing. We all connect with different styles, and it's hard to say one is better than the other, objectively. So, keep in mind, this is my list, shaped by stories I've read and the artists whose work has stuck with me the most. I didn't try to be overly traditional or pick the most critically acclaimed names. I just went with the artist I've loved the most, based on what I've actually read. That means if someone iconic isn't here, like George Perez or others from the earlier eras, it's probably because I either haven't read enough of their work or haven't connected with their style the same way. Also, this list is DC specific. There are incredible artists I love from Marvel, Invincible, Star Wars, but this one's all about DC. And for the most part, I've focused on artists who have been recurring names, not someone who just did a single arc or a few covers. Since I mostly read modern DC, especially post 1990s, that's where all these artists on the list will come from. I've read a little from the 80s, like the Crisis on Infinite Earths, or even before that, The Fourth World, but this list is very much shaped by the modern era. With all that said, let's jump into it. Kicking things off at number 5 is Ivan Reis. That's how I think you pronounce his name. One of the most consistent and polished artists in modern DC Comics. His art is bold, clean, and vibrant. A perfect example of classic superhero comic book style. It embraces the exaggerated heroic proportions and dramatic layouts that make comics exciting to read, without trying to be too realistic. His work feels cinematic, but in a way that accepts that we are reading a comic book page. He's probably best known for his work on Green Lantern with Jeff Jones, where he played a huge role in one of DC's most epic eras. His artwork helped bring to life The Blackest Night and The Brightest Day, two of the biggest crossover events of not just Green Lantern history, but DC history as well. And beyond the Green Lantern lore, Reese was also a key artist for Infinite Crisis and 52, major storylines that involve the entire DC universe. He also played an important part in the DC's Rebirth initiative, where he designed massive panels that allowed us to see his work with all major DC characters. Whether it's cosmic battles or grounded action, his visuals always deliver. His faces don't necessarily have one defining trait, but the clarity and the confidence in his styles give every character a classic superhero presence. At number 4, there is Gary Frank, a master of subtle realism with a sharp, expressive pencil style. His work has the grounded texture feel. You can see the line work, feel the structure behind the image. It never feels overproduced or overly digital. It feels crafted and authentic. And one thing Gary Frank does incredibly well is facial expressions. He captures surprise, awe, curiosity, those more nuanced, in the moment emotions that bring character to life. He's done great work across DC, but I especially love his evolution with Superman. In the early 2000s, you could see a strong resemblance to Christopher Reeve, but over time, Frank's version of the character becomes its own thing, more grounded, more mature, more expressive. By the time we get to 2018-19 with the Doomsday Clock, he's absolutely at his peak. The pages feel cinematic and intimate at the same time. Frank's storytelling is emotional, detailed, and always immersive. He doesn't just draw scenes, he draws moments, and that's what makes his work so powerful. Coming in at number 3 is Dan Mora, my favorite modern DC artist of the 2020s. His style is instantly recognizable, bright, colorful, and dynamic. It's that perfect blend of classic superhero drawings we see from the Golden Age with a modern edge. Everything feels bold and alive. His lines are sharp, his action is fluid, and his characters are iconic from the second you see them. Most artists, even the ones on this list, have styles that overlap in some way, but Dan Mora feels like he's operating on a whole different system. If comic book art was considered software like Apple, most artists would be building on the same platform, evolving, refining, upgrading. But Mora's style is like someone introducing an entirely new operating system. He doesn't just add something new to the mix, he redefines the space entirely. I first really noticed him during Batman Superman World's Finest with Mark Waid, one of DC's best recent titles, and since then he's been everywhere. He's currently drawing Superman in a story arc called Legion of Darkseid, and he's one of the lead artists behind DC's latest big event, Absolute Power. So he's at the center of action right now. What's really impressive is how he draws every character in his unique way, whether it's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, or anyone else. They all look amazing. And his faces are some of the best in modern comics. Confident, bold, and full of personality. There's often this little spark of arrogance in their expressions, especially with Superman and Batman. And this is not a negative thing to say. It is in a way that feels more iconic. Mora brings energy and style to every page, and I'll think he's only gonna climb higher on this list in the future. At number 2, we have Jason Fabok, the master of scale, weight, and seriousness in superhero comics. His art is crisp and cinematic, but what really makes it stand out is the tone. Everything he draws feels important. His style doesn't suggest casual fun. It says this comic book you're about to read matters. When Fabok is in a book, it feels like something world-changing is about to happen. And his faces reflect that seriousness. You can see the gravity of the moment in every expression. The tension, the intensity, the emotional weight, it's all there. His Batman looks haunted in the Three Jokers story. His Superman looks burdened in Man of Steel. His Wonder Woman looks a battle-tested warrior in Darkseid War. He doesn't just draw costumes, he draws a state of mind. Fabok's best work, in my opinion, Justice League Darkseid War. Just flipping through the pages, you can feel the scale of the story. He also drew Batman 3 Jokers and contributed to Bendis' Man of Steel, which later turned into Bendis' Superman run with his new volume. Even when the writing isn't perfect, the visuals are always next level. He's the artist you call when the story has to matter. Before we get to number 1, I want to give a quick shout out to my honorable mention, Alex Ross. Alex Ross is one of the most respected comic book artists of all time, known for his hyper-realistic painted style that makes superheroes look like living legends. And this was before the eras of movies where we couldn't exactly imagine these characters in live action. His work on Kingdom Come is a perfect example, mythic, serious, and spiritual. It's like superhero art elevated to a finer version. Ross doesn't just illustrate, he visualizes. Even when he's not writing, he's shaping the tone of the story through his visuals. The only reason he's not in the top 5 is simply because I haven't read enough of his work beyond Kingdom Come and its adjacent stories. But based on that alone, he just had to be mentioned. He's on a league of his own. And finally, at number 1, it is Jim Lee. After the 1990s, I don't think any artist has shaped comic book visuals more than Jim Lee. He defined the look of the X-Men in the early 90s, so much of the X-Men animated series was based on his design. And then he moved to DC and did it again for nearly every major character. He did Batman, Superman, Justice League. He's so iconic, everyone wants a stamp of Jim Lee in their project, at least with a variant cover on their comic books. What sets Jim Lee apart is his versatility. Everything I said about Jason Fabok's intensity, Jim Lee can do that. But he can also handle lighthearted moments, expressive character beats, and quieter scenes. His faces are flawless. You can see sadness, anger, guilt, pride, happiness, all clearly communicated without a single word of dialogue. That is true mastery. And beyond that, just being a great artist, he's also one of the most influential ones. Every modern comic artist, in some way, is working in the shadow of Jim Lee. He's the blueprint, he sets the standard. Whenever DC launches a new major number one or a big event, Jim Lee is always there because people want a piece of that legacy attached to their story. Jim Lee doesn't just draw superheroes, he defines them. That's why he is my number one. Well, that was my top 5 DC Comics artists plus one honorable mention. As I said earlier, this is a very personal list focused mostly on the modern era, and with the evolution of digital tools and comic production, I think we've seen a new level of polish and style that helped these artists shine. That doesn't take anything away from the other legends. I just haven't read enough of their work to include them here fairly. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What makes your top 5? Did I miss someone you love, or did you discover someone new here? Let me know. We're also planning to do a Marvel version of this list soon, and maybe even a big combined list covering all the comics we read, including indie publishers. That way, artists like Ryan Otterly, who hasn't done much work for DC or Marvel, could be featured here too. If that sounds interesting, drop it in the comments as well. Now, thank you for watching, and B-Bros out.